Hello, RFG. This month we're running the transit van on Nürburgring, and I thought I'd put together a quick guide on how to drive this car around the ring. Given that this is a 12-minute lap, I'm not going to commentate through the entire thing. Rather, we're just going to focus on elements of, I guess, a vision and to help with consistency so that you can get a clean lap in and be able to run fairly consistently on this track. Reminder that the race this month is going to be a Predator style race. So it's a 15-minute timed race where the leader, the slowest car, gets a few second head start. And then the next car rolls off the line and the next car rolls off the line. And so the person at the back will have a long handicap. And then it's a 15-minute time race. So at the end of 15 minutes, where you place is your standing for the race. And so be warned, by the end of 15 minutes, most folks are likely going to be bunched up together. And these vans are very wide on the track, which is very narrow through the Northern Schleife. Now, in 15 minutes, you can probably expect to get through the circuit once, and then probably be somewhere down in the GP circuit when the race ends. For the purposes of this lap guide, I'm just going to focus on vision and handling characteristics of this car and how to get the most of it. So we're going to start down here at the straight. This is a flying lap. This lap is a 2-minute 13, but it's a dirty lap in that I was using rewind a lot just to learn the track and put together what is probably an optimal target time. So a lot of the corners you see here have been kind of redone to make sure that they're actually nice and smooth, and if you're able to do that consistently, then this is going to be a fairly good lap time. It's not going to show up on the leaderboards because this is a dirty lap, but I guess it's a fairly quick lap. It's a 2-minute 13, and so this is more of a aspirational target and kind of an ideal line for every corner to help you learn the track. This is a flying lap, so we're going to head down here into the GP circuit into turn 1 here. And I've put some arrows on the track, which will pop up shortly as braking references, as references on the track that you can, that you should try and find to help you run consistently here. I mean, doing this by feel. And I forget how long this track is, but on a track like this, doing it by feel will make it pretty hard to get a clean lap together. And I'm using the in-car view here because it helps show, I guess I want to try and get across what I'm doing with the steering, as well as when I'm shifting. I've got the telemetry up as well. One thing you'll note about this car is that you really don't want to be pushing the red line. Anything above 4,500 revs, torque and power drop off significantly. So if you're trying to push it all the way to the red line or push it all the way to 5,000, you're probably going to be slower than if you bit the bullet and shifted. And you'll see the torque and power numbers drop off as you get higher into the rev band. So turn 1 on a flying lap here, you're really looking for the, at least I'm looking for the start of the curbing on the left-hand side. And that is the braking marker. And then you want to look for the bollard on the inside of that corner. Really try and hit that bollard. You want to really be aggressive on that turn so you can set up for this turn. And again, I used the track limits line the first time around, just so I can learn this part of the track. It's not very clear where the track is defined here, especially on the exit of this corner. But you want to clip that right hand, the green painted area on this right hand, more so than I did this time around. You can clip it a little more. I didn't really get on it. And aim for this little section of where the track joins together again. The track limits are actually kind of, you can't see the track limits here, so that's where it helps to run with the track limits once, just so you know where it is. But this is essentially pretty close to the edge of the track limit. Now heading up to this next corner here, I'm trying to use as much of the track as possible, so I'm really, taking that reference on the outside of here where the national circuit goes, turns away, and really trying to use as much of the track as I can to decrease the angle on entry. And you'll notice, this is one thing to point out, that you'll notice the steering input in this corner, I'm actually not really using the steering to turn the car right now. I'm on the brakes ever so gently. You can see 14.5% on the brakes right now. I'm using the brakes to bring the rear around, so I'm not putting a whole lot of steering angle into it. And that's how you're going to probably gain quite a bit of time in this car, because if you're relying on the front wheels to turn, you're going to have to brake before the corner, scrub a lot of speed off so that the front continues to grip. Here, what I'm trying to do is, I haven't braked into this corner, and I'm trail braking on the entry to the corner to swing that back around. And again, I'm always having to counter steer because the back is coming around, and so not having to apply as much steering input, and just relying on the momentum around the back to bring the car around. Yeah, and I'll get rid of these yellow arrows in a second, but it's just to kind of help frame where I'm looking in the track, and essentially where you're looking is where you're going to be positioning your car. It helps you naturally get the car into the right position and clip the apex at the right point. Now this car being so large and so heavy, it's not really upset by the curbs, so really try to use as much of the track as you can. You can see here I'm already on the curbing on the right hand side, and then one thing you'll note with this car is that the curbing on the left hand side. One thing you'll note with this car is it's actually pretty aggressively sprung setup, in that it pushes a lot of the weight out front, and it's almost three-wheeling through the corners. I'll put up a friction view of the telemetry of the friction of each tire as well. But because it's so aggressively set up and it has a solid rear axle with a pretty aggressive diff as well, you really want to get it pointed straight so that it can put its power down. You'll hear the tire squealing as I try to put the power down here, and that's just because the rear end is pretty aggressive, and the diff is pretty aggressive, and it's just spinning up that. And there's so little weight on the inside rear tire that it's just spinning up. So what I tried to do here in this corner, and I went in a little too fast, but is to kind of try and square off the corner, so diamond out the corner a little bit rather than taking it as a smooth turn. I've kind of gone into it a little harder, hit the kind of made the corner a double apex type of corner. So square it off as much as you can so that you get the car pointed out on the exit with as little steering input as possible so that you can get the power down. And this view will kind of show you how aggressively the car is set up. Look at how much weight is on the right rear right now. And the back of this car is really set up pretty stiff to push all the weight up front. And then as you're getting back on the power here, that you can see that just now that the inside tire has a lot of trouble putting that traction down. So you tend to want to square off the corners as much as you can. And then from here on out, I'll just, those are kind of my talking points for the lap. From here on out, you can just, I won't have any more of those yellow arrows, and you can just use your own references. You can see I'm still trying to use as much of the track as possible. And I'm shifting into fourth here because being high on the revs in third is actually more of a handicap. And you can see here, third through the chicanes. I was initially using second, but I found that the car pulls really well in the higher gears, so there's not a need to be really high and really aggressive with the gearing and really high in the rev range. You can really take advantage of that low down torque of this diesel and stay in a higher gear. So I'm going to stay quiet for the rest of this. You can, again, this is a lap put together using rewinds to make sure that I've gotten every corner at least decently. The corners that you really want to spend a lot of time on are ones that lead to long stretches of the long straightaways where you're running at very high speeds. If you come out of corners leading to long straights poorly, it can really cost you quite a bit in this car, given that it takes a long time to get up to speed. So you'll be losing a lot of speed down the straights. I think getting a good exit out of here is probably worth almost a second. And then up this crest here, I found that you can actually stay flat through these set of corners. The back end will complain a little bit, but you can keep the power down and still keep it on the track. And then there's just one last point I'll make on this track. As you're coming over the crest of this corner here, through the fast left-hander here, just be careful on the brakes as you're starting to apply the brakes here. You can see my steering input. I'm steering the other way actually because the back is coming around under the brakes. There's a lot of momentum. Back end carries a lot of momentum to the right as you're coming out of that fast left-hander. So as you're braking, just make sure that you either wait for the car to settle or that you're countering that weight transfer with steering input. That's it. Good luck. And again, a reminder, the race is going to be a Predator style format, so it's probably not going to be the last bit of lap time that counts. It's really going to be about making sure you're consistent and keeping it on track, because that's going to be the easiest way for you to lose the time advantage you have at the start. Going off track here is it can be pretty costly, and the tire walls are also in place. Given that this is a timed race, not a normal race, there's no way for us to remove Forza race regulations. So you will have the tire barriers that have been put in place to prevent cutting all around this track. And so if you get it wrong and run into one of those, then that's probably 5 seconds right there.